Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a new episode of Rocket Lab Weekly. This is episode 38. So soon we're coming up on 1 year of doing this show. So on this episode, we have Matt Money with us.
What's going on?
Yes, how was your week, Matt?
Good. Yeah. So I had my mom. That's how I actually got this hat. I don't know if I explained that the other day, but actually went to NASA Space Center with my mom was that on Monday? She came to visit. It's been a while since she's actually been here, and fortunate we were able to go and hang out in NASA. And I was like, you know what? I don't actually have a NASA hat. I have a lot of these things behind me, like the Apollo mission sort of pens and
Patches,
stuff
or
like that. Yeah, but
oh, nice.
I don't have much else from NASA, so I was like, it'd be a cool opportunity to pick something up. So that's where I got this hat, and the rest of the week, obviously, we did the stream for the 50th launch. That was a lot of fun on Thursday, so 2 days ago. And not much else, man. Just working. Finished out a lot of big things at the office yesterday, so it was nice. Normally, I don't go in on Fridays, but took the opportunity to take the quiet day on a Friday and knock it out. So all was good.
Awesome. And how's your portfolio feeling the week?
It's not bad, man. Actually, let me pull up. I'm curious to see because I was borderline hitting a new mark in the portfolio. It's definitely still at all-time highs for sure, but I'm curious if it's way above where I last recorded all-time highs or if it's still. Let me see. No, it's still kind of regular all-time highs. Nothing too extravagant because I think we've had a little bit of a pullback the past 2 days. So, how about yours?
Yeah, I also reached a new high. The portfolio went over 300,000 for the first time, which I guess is chump change for you, but it was a big
300,000 is a lot. That's good money, man. That's real good money. Real good money.
And yeah, Rocket Lab is doing amazing in the green now this week on Rocket Lab.
Yeah. What is your cost basis? I never really knew.
So it's like, I don't know. I have to calculate it because when you look on Interactive Brokers, it says 450 is my cost basis.
Okay.
But what's weird is I got shares assigned for $5, right?
Right.
But they were via a put option where I got paid myself. So the real, I don't think Interactive Brokers is adjusting for that. So
yeah. Sometimes those things can be a little fishy.
Yeah, so I would guess my cost basis is something like 440, something like this.
It's real good. Anything in the fours, man, I think is just going to be phenomenal. I think I'm in like the high fours, like four. I think in my Roth, I have it. I'm going to mix up the numbers. In my Roth, I have it at 480 or 490, and then in my individual brokerage account, I have it like 470, 480, and so it's in the upper fours. I don't remember if it was like in the 480 or 470, which was my cost basis, but it's somewhere around there. Yeah. I put it in the spreadsheet for Dave G's, I guess Discord has their spreadsheet. And I put it in there. So
wow, somebody has 3.87 is my average holding for many years. I mean, then this guy was amazing at adding. If he has been holding since a long time, then he must have gone like balls deep in the 360s when it was down there.
That's been my mistake. I haven't added nearly as much as I should have over the past few months, and I should have doubled or tripled my position. I did add a lot, right? I think I was at I think I only upped my position by like 50%, and I should have doubled it, and I'd probably be in the lower half of the fours, but it is what it is.
Yeah, the funny story that I always say is, Palantir is my first like really big winner, and I don't remember my cost basis. It's like it's over 8 and below 9. But what I do remember is every time I look at it, I wish I would have had more shares, and I think that this is just a very important point for everyone who's watching, that when this stock really goes to the moon, it will not matter if your cost basis is 4.5 or 4.3 or 5.1. But what you are going to regret is not having enough shares.
Yeah, I feel the same. I agree with you. It's like, what is it? When you're building your portfolio, you get to a place where you're like, okay, at least for me, I do a lot of, I'm very conscious about not over allocating money to certain positions, but then it'll take me too long, I'd say, for me to get past that point. So for a while, 4,000 shares of Palantir, I was like, ooh, that's my limit, right? And then it got to the point where I was just like, okay, I don't mind, in companies that I have a lot of conviction in, I don't mind getting up to closer to $100,000 of personal capital invested. And then I never re-looked at, say, Palantir. It took like a conversation with Amit or something to be like, why haven't you bought Palantir in, however long? And I was like, you're right. I should. And I think I've done a little bit better with that about Rocket Lab, and, making sure, because Rocket Lab was always kind of a smaller position for me. And then it got to the point where I was like, I really need to beef this thing up because my conviction continues to get better and better, coupled with the fact that I think that there's a lot of catalysts that have already happened that reduce the capital exposure risk. And so we're getting closer and closer to Neutron. And I think that that's going to be where the pop really comes off for the stock and just the company in general in terms of revenue growth and really pushing it to the next level. And so the closer we get to that, the more convicted I am, especially that, things have progressed pretty handsomely, right? I remember talking about in 2022, by end of 2024. And the fact that since that time, it's only slipped by 6 months is very impressive, specifically for a rocket launch, right? I mean, generally speaking, when we're talking about delays for rocket launches, most of the time it's like 12 to 18 months at a minimum. So the fact that we've gone 18
which
months,
company are you talking? Blue Origin, ULA?
all of them. Yeah, all of them.
There it's like 5 years is a good delay.
Yeah, so I mean, the fact that it's been 18 months down the path of when they kind of announced Neutron, to maybe closer to 24 months since they've announced Neutron, and they've only delayed it by 6 months is pretty impressive because you've eaten up 2/3 of the timeline already, and the fact that they've only delayed it by 6 months is rather impressive.
Yeah. You actually segued into something that I really wanted to show the audience. We're going to cover the happenings of this week, which there was a lot of. But you did a video with Amit this week, which I thought was really, really good. And you guys raised a very interesting question, if Rocket Lab is dead money. Mm-hmm. Because I don't know if it was the point to raise that, but it did come up, that if like we are very early investing in Rocket Lab, and my guess is, or what I'm trying to say is, you pointed out how much risk has been taken out of the company, because like 2 years ago it was very speculative as a play, and I wanted to show a video that came out just before the 50th launch. Let me see if I'm sharing. It's Peter Beck about what he had to overcome to get to Electron launching at any kind of cadence. And yeah, we're going to add our comments to the video.
Papa Pete. No sound for me.
Is there
you might have to reshare and make sure when you hit share, there's a tab or a little button that says share desktop audio or something.
Okay. Let's try again. Can you guys let me know in the comments if there was sound?
Yeah, maybe it's just me. You never know.
It's probably, I've had so much technical issues lately. I don't know what it is. My laptop is not the newest. Here it is. Okay, we try again.
There we go.
And it didn't go well.
Okay, so let me just go back to the beginning. And here
I remember when we were developing Electron and I was trying to raise money out of Silicon Valley, and I had a meeting with a venture capitalist. And the meeting didn't go well. He summarized my proposal back to me that made it sound totally absurd. It went something like, so you have no degree, you're from a country that has never put anything to orbit before, you think you can beat Richard Branson, you're going to build a rocket out of carbon composite that's never been done before, you're proposing to 3D print a rocket engine that's never been done before, and by the way, you're also going to build a launch site in another country, you're going to get a bilateral treaty signed between those two countries to enable it, and you think that you can get there faster than everybody else, and I should invest. I remember being read back that I'm like, when you put it like that, that doesn't sound very, very reasonable. And systematically went through each one of those points and explained, how we're going to solve each one of those, and they led the B round.
So I just really wanted to show this because sometimes I feel that people are not aware of where Rocket Lab came from. It's literally a bootstrap company with no money from a country that had no aerospace industry. Peter Beck is a dishwasher engineer, that has not gone to university. And sometimes I feel that after they have gone through all these steps, and then to think that they would fail on, developing a new rocket, or, that they would not, there is some technical hurdle that they cannot overcome. For me, it feels so unlikely when they've already climbed the Himalaya as a comparison. So what is your opinion about this, and what's the risk that is left in Rocket Lab?
I think that a lot of risk from a feasibility standpoint has been removed, right? And I'm going to be very clear about this. But from an execution perspective, you're still dealing with rocket science. So obviously, the piece about Electron, that's obviously been solved, 50 launches, that now it's really just about cadence, and if they can keep the cadence appropriate enough to cover, sales and general administrative costs. He's demonstrated he's been able to integrate multiple, not just one, but multiple other companies into their space systems unit. They've been able to demonstrate that with that integration, they've been able to fulfill multiple satellite contracts for a multitude of different people, NASA included. And now I think that they're focusing on something that they've kind of done before, if that makes sense. So they've learned a lot, I would anticipate, from the Electron launch. I think that in the growth of the Electron as well, and being able to make it reusable. And they also have the ability to kind of lean on what's already been done from a Elon Musk perspective with the Falcon 9 and landing, and same with Blue Origin, the ability to land. And these guys are planning that from kind of day one. So to me, I don't think the technical feasibility is a problem. I think it's just the overall execution, right? It's still rocket science. You're still gonna have to put a rocket up into the air. There's always going to be, you can run as many calculations as you want, but once you actually put something on the pad and launch it, I think that's just the true sign as if you're prepared or not. I'm fairly confident that they'll do well. Will they get it on the first try? It's difficult. Most of the time, most people don't. But I think that these guys have had so much experience since the early 2000s, or I guess mid 2000s to now. You're almost 20 years into the company. A few years short of that, but these guys have been around the block. I think the only problem that I potentially see now is the fact that you have so many people involved and you have grown rather extensively, that there might be something missed, a dot of an I or a cross of a T, that might end up, getting unfortunately overlooked during the prototyping phase, during the mold phase. And unfortunately, that might lead to an incorrect design, which might unfortunately lead to execution not going to plan. But I think overall, if you can't trust Peter with everything that he's been able to accomplish, and Adam, then I don't know who else you could really maybe put your hand over your heart and say, yeah, these guys could do it better, maybe than Elon, you know? And there's a few others maybe in the industry, but I would say that these guys are in a class of their own, and they've demonstrated that they can play with the big boys. And I put my trust in them. And I think the culture there at Rocket Lab is far from souring. I think it's thriving. And I think that all those combination of those things, the expertise, the experience, the bootstrapping, the culture, all is something that I'm personally fully aligned with. And I think that they'll continue to do well. So in terms of capital exposure risk, to me, a lot of it's gone, but that's for me. I'm okay if I lose 100 grand. I don't think I will. I think that they have a couple tries before they really had to call Neutron quits. I think that they could easily get it done within 2 or 3 launches. If they don't get it done within 2 or 3 launches, it'll probably be more dire straits, but I see the probability of that being very low. But it is still rocket science at the end of the day. I would say, to me, within the next 3 years, total potential for bankruptcy is less than 5% for the organization. And once they get Neutron up and off the ground, say it happens within the first 2 launches and it happens in 2025, I would say the risk of bankruptcy goes down probably to the couple percentage point range. And I would push that likelihood of bankruptcy out to 2030, because once you get Neutron up and off the ground, the amount of contracts due to demand that's coming through will just escalate the amount of revenue. It'll increase the working capital, because as we've talked about with Peter, 90% of the capital is delivered on day one, and then they just can't realize it as revenue until the launch actually happens. And so it'll put a lot of capital into their backlog that they'll literally just be sitting on, waiting for it to kind of go through and be realized as revenue. So it'll give them a lot of working capital in that respect. And I think, if you would ask me a year ago, 2 years ago, I would have said probably closer to 10 to 15% likelihood of bankruptcy. Now, with the way I've seen gross margins in the space systems, gross margins overall for the company climbing up closer to the 30% range. And that's before we've really seen too much growing in terms of the revenue. And that's pre-Neutron. I would say, yeah, the likelihood has definitely come down.
Awesome. So I want to just quickly go through the news of the week. I'm sure most people who are here have heard and seen on their portfolios that we closed a new 10 launch deal with Synspective, which is a Japanese company. Rocket Lab has already launched 4 of their satellites, or have had 4 launches with them. There's 2 more scheduled, and then outside of those 2, they made a 10 contract. And what's weird with this contract is the contract is probably worth $80 million, but the stock reacted and went up. I can't remember the exact number, but something like 300 million in market cap. And I personally thought that the reaction was very overdriven to the contract, but the stock was very undervalued to begin with, so it's okay that the stock went up. Do you have any comments on this contract?
No, I agree. I think you put that perfectly. One, it's backlog, so it's not going to be realized today. It's, let's just say, 80 million. The market cap even going up by 80 million is probably pretty crazy as well, because you think about it, not all that's going to be realized as profit, etc. But at the same time, like you said, the stock has been pretty depressed, and I'm not 100% sure why. I think the reason why you saw such a rally was because you've now seen Synspective come through with pretty much tripling the amount of rockets they're going to be putting through Rocket Lab, and kind of as a sole provider too, right? If you think about it in that perspective, coupled with now you have Black Sky doing the same, not necessarily today, but they've also re-upped multiple times over the past few years. So you're just continuing to see people come back repeat customers. And I think that that's where people get scared at the moment. There's a lot of these customers that are still so small that they could literally fall off the map in the face of the earth within a couple, but the fact that Synspective is now coming back just shows that one, they're not just necessarily, because that's another piece you have to think about, right? When you think about real estate, you think about all these other things. Who are you renting to? Who are you selling to? Is it people that can actually be there for the long term that you can continue to grow with? Or is it somebody that's not creditworthy and is on the verge of bankruptcy? Well, now you have Black Sky, which is turning EBITDA positive. You have Synspective. I don't know much about their financials, but the fact that they're signing up for 10 launches up front shows that there's that opportunity to continue to do well. You had a successful partnership with Kinesis, and you had they streamed it for the 50th launch. They had 800 people watching. It was absolutely insane. Maybe that's a third potential long-term customer that will continue to do well. And then also, I think the merit of who Synspective is not something to be kind of just shoved off to the side. The fact that it's pretty much a Japanese government organization really helps in that respect. And the fact that you would now have a gentleman, not a billionaire yet, he should be, but a gentleman that's been able to, as he touched on with his video, sign deals with the United States, Australia, Japan. This guy's a diplomat. You know what I mean? He knows what he's doing, and he's not able to just execute rocket relations and rocket science, but he's actually able to get across as a diplomat and be able to unlock space for a multitude of countries. And so I think that says a lot, being able to launch not only from New Zealand, where you could launch several Asian countries, as well as American companies as well, but you have the ability to launch from Wallops, which allows you to launch specifically haste contracts, Neutron, etc. I think it just opens up the flexibility, something that I don't think you see a lot of from a lot of other companies, right? And especially not talking badly about SpaceX, but they have 4 launch pads, but all of them are all in the United States. And so does that give them as much flexibility as, say, Rocket Lab? And I don't know the answer, right? I'm not the one in the trenches like these guys are, but I think being able to have something on the southern hemisphere as well as the northern hemisphere definitely has its advantages, and that should be something that is not necessarily just thrown out the window.
Yeah. It's been a few days, and I did a little bit of thinking, and it could be also that the reason why the market reacted so much, it's that it is sort of like a proof of concept that SpaceX is not able to take all the customers with the transporter missions. It's actually true what they're saying, that the transporter missions, they're booked 2 years ahead, and they leave at a certain time. And if you miss that, you have to wait 2 more years. And if you're a startup like this Synspective, if they would miss this Electron launch, they would have to wait 2 years with paying their employees, renting their offices, getting no revenue, not doing any science at that time, and that is just not feasible, right? So I was thinking maybe it was a reaction to that also, that it's like a proof of concept and really shows that there's a very solid demand for Electron.
Yeah, and I think another piece of it as well, which I think you hit, and it was just on the tip of my tongue. Crap. Oh, the lack of ability for transporter to help at all. 2 of these launches for Synspective are actually happening in the 3rd or 4th quarter, right? So they were able to, and it gives me hope, right? Because we know that some of the cadence that's been going on this year in 2024, for our conversations with Peter, this is the 8th launch that we've had on Thursday. That's obviously trailing behind the 22 launch manifests that we had this year. But Synspective has been able to backfill some of those opportunities that were supposed to launch later this year, but have been pushed out to 2025 or beyond. And so it goes to show the flexibility of what Rocket Lab is really putting into place with the Electron program. And I think that also is something that might have been a boost in the price. is because I think a lot of people were kind of like, well, 22 seems pretty optimistic, but in reality, it's like we might get closer to 20 than we think. Just if you continue to have the ability to have companies like this, backfill where other companies may unfortunately lag behind and have to push. And I think that was what happened with Cadence, right? I think Cadence was supposed to launch in 2023, and they pushed as well.
Yeah.
So it goes to show you, like, a lot of it, especially if you look at the videos of the Electron building room. It's like they have a lot of rockets just sitting there, almost like waiting to be, like, they have a backlog of like 5 or 7, electrons just waiting to be stood upright and launched into space. I think a lot of it really is just making sure. And I think with the ability for Rocket Lab to be an end-to-end space company, maybe it works out in the future where Rocket Lab's the one that's building their own satellites and is able to launch a lot faster. So the turnaround time won't be years for an Electron launch. It'll be maybe a couple months or maybe even a couple weeks, where you might be able to have a few, of these Explorer satellites ready, and you just have to do a few tweaks. So that might be a week or two's worth of work, or a couple weeks worth of work. And then they just literally just have to find you a slot to put you in. And, they could have a couple launches per month that kind of have an ongoing open window or something like that. So it just makes you think, like, if the demand is there and if they're able to take some of the lack of preparedness or lack of execution risk from the client's perspective of them delaying due to not being ready for their satellites, etc., then it might be able to increase cadence as well, which I think it kind of gives me hope that Rocket Lab is moving in the right direction with building their own satellites and buses, etc. And then 2, the potential for Synspective to infill some of the delays that were happening in the second half of the year.
Yeah. And talking about cadence, so there is a couple of people asking in the comments if we think that there is going to get if there's going to be one more launch. So 4 launches in a quarter is the highest cadence that Rocket Lab has ever had, and that was in Q1. Now we're in Q2, almost there's 1 week left in Q2, and we're at 4 again. So this is like we hit the previous record, and they did speak about on the earnings call that there might be a 5th launch. And I think that they're technically able to do the launch, but we don't know if the customer is ready. So do you think we would be getting a 5th launch?
I think it's pretty tough. I think by this point, they probably, if they were actually going to have it happen, they likely would have probably announced something that they're going to try to squeak it in, but it might be delayed to July or something like that. But from the websites that I'm looking at, I'm not seeing any updates, but let me see if there's, maybe I could be wrong.
And then there is one thing that should definitely happen this quarter, which was promised, and that is the hot fire test of Archimedes. And there is 1 week left. So do you think that in this 1 week, we are finally going to see that engine breathe fire on the test stand?
I don't know. I would say it's been on the test stand now for close to a month. I would anticipate that there's likelihood for it to potentially fire, but I wouldn't be surprised if it happens the first week of July. And with that, I would anticipate that they would give us a progress update as to how far it has been completed thus far, like the amount of testing and everything the like, and they give us a little bit more color. But I anticipate by the time you have the earnings call, it will be done. So they might not get it done in the quarter, but they would likely get it done before the earnings call, because I believe the earnings call would probably be in August timeframe. So it gives them all of July. So I don't know. Will they get it done in the quarter? Probably not. But will they get it done before the earnings call? Likely.
Yeah. By the way, there's a conference that Adam Spice is going to speak at next week. I don't know the exact date when, and I also don't know if it's going to be broadcasted on the internet. But we might get a hot fire test update, not necessarily not necessarily the hot fire itself, but like an update of what's happening, what's the delay, is it going good? And I'll be here to post about it, but don't know if it's going to be available online.
Yeah, I think the thing that I'm curious about most is I really want to see the haste cadence really increase. And I know that they had, at least if I remember correctly, they had a couple hastes planned for this year.
Someone posted 7 this year or something. No,
I remember they updated the backlog, which the backlog for future launches showed a pretty extravagant, but maybe let me pull up to see because.
But by the way, public service announcement: if somebody has a pirate copy of Wild Wild Space, don't send it to me. I don't condone such things. I'm really curious what's in that movie.
Yeah, that'd be really cool to see.
Is there anyone here who has seen that movie? I think it was one release in DC, one premiere. Yeah, I'm just curious.
But yeah, let me pull up Q4 23. I think they did it for Q4. They might have did it in Q3. Let's see.
If you wanna share, you can just go ahead.
If I find it, yeah.
Yeah.
I could have sworn maybe it was the Q3. Record year for launch deals. Yes, they talked about the launch deals in the fourth quarter, but I think they talked about the manifest in Q3. So let me share the launch deals piece because this is kind of where you're cutting that 7 number from. Yeah. So these are the launch deals that they signed in 2023. So how many different? So they've signed 18 Electron and 7. So that was what? I'm not good with math, Vince. You know that 25 deals that they signed for Electron in 2023. But this is not what the manifest shows for 2024. That I believe is in here, which is the Q3. Yeah, so let me share this instead. Yeah, so this is what was supposed to be launched this year, which is 6 launches in Q2, so we'll be too shy there, but the white bands are haste. So we should expect a haste. I thought, for some reason, I always thought the red bands were haste, but I'm dumb. That's the recoveries. So the white band is haste. So we should expect a haste in Q3 and Q4. And I know that they had signed some deals with some of our friends in the DoD for starting to do a lot more in 2025. So I'm really kind of curious as to the cadence that they can do for haste missions and the cadence they can do for electron missions, because I feel like you could almost have them at different paces because they're almost 2 different clienteles. I don't know what the objective of the haste missions are because it's suborbital. Is it for defense? Is it for... So I'm kind of curious, like, are there even satellites in there that you'd have to be waiting on, or are you just launching it? So I don't know the details.
I did a little research on what so the issue is that there is super high speed missiles that is it's like a new weapons technology that has a name, and I think it's like super high velocity ballistic missiles, something like this. And the problem is that it's going so fast that by the time the radars detect it, it's almost ready to strike the target. And then there's no, like, currently the US doesn't have any defenses against that. And then the technology that they're trying to develop as a defense, that's what has to do with haste. So they're trying to test how fast is it to, like, if they have satellites in very low Earth orbit, like how fast they can, detect these missiles, and if there's a way that they can intercept them, like from these things. It's something to do with this very advanced weapon technology.
Yeah.
And it kind of sounds important, right? Because if Russia, China, or anybody has these super high speed missiles, it's like currently I don't believe that anyone has protection against that. So it's like they can just press a button, shoot, and then there's no missile defense against that.
So yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to take over the chat there. Somebody's asking what I mean by cadence, right? So how frequently you can turn around, right? How because at the moment, like for example, Vince mentioned earlier, the most we've seen from a quarterly basis for Electron launches is 4. My hope is, and I think where they're at right now is based off of the customer count, they can get to 5 or 6. And so my hope is that if you were to say, yes, we could do 5 or 6 Electrons, that doesn't mean inclusive of haste. Haste would kind of be like a different beast on its own. And that would mean that potentially you get 7 or 8 launches in a quarter right now based off of, so I don't know. And it looks like right now, obviously we've only done 1 haste launch in 2023. We have to do another. And so I'm hoping that we can continue to increase the cadence, how frequently we are able to do them. And it looks like we're going to do 1 in next quarter, 1 in Q4. But my hope is we're able to do 1 or 2 a quarter kind of going forward into 2025. And I'm really curious when we release the manifest for 2025. I don't think it'll be this quarter, but maybe they'll do the same. They'll do Q3. So maybe we can expect it in October, November time frame, so probably 4 or 5 months from now, what the cadence will look like for Electron and for haste in 2025. So
all right, and you see we have Beater Peck here who's explaining that haste is suborbital hypersonic testbed for taking down ballistic missiles. Yeah. Cool. So then this week we also had, as we already kind of touched on this, the 50th launch of Electron, and it went completely smooth. It seems effortless at this point, and I think that it's just the headline, like they did. It's not more complicated than that. That it was their 50th launch, but I think it's a very, very big thing. Rocket Lab Electron actually reached the 50th launch before Falcon 9 reached its 50th launch. There is, I don't know if there's another company besides SpaceX who has launched a rocket more than 50 times. If there are other companies, then it's very, very rare. So it's like really shows how much ahead Rocket Lab is. Matt, what are your thoughts on the 50th launch, and how significant is it for Rocket Lab?
No, I agree with you. I think it's very important, and I agree. I'm trying to think of other companies that have hit that 50 milestone. I think if you remember when Peter shared it, I shared something similar, like around the same time that Peter did, and then I'm glad he confirmed it, because sometimes I can get wrong information. He was showing something like a Pegasus rocket and a few other rockets that really topped out and some of those were like in the 90s and early 2000s that made it only to like 20 launches and then they stopped.
Which company was the Pegasus? I don't even know that.
I think it was like it was like a defense company. It was yeah, but I mean, if you think about it, ULA and Total, and this is switching different types of rockets and everything like that, has done 155 missions. And so I'm trying to figure out, how many of each particular rocket they've done, because I'm kind of curious at this point, because they've been at it since 2006. But even from then, they've had the Delta 2, the Delta 4. And so I'm kind of curious how many of each particular rocket they've been able to do, because each one of them is a little bit different, right? Now that they're on to Vulcan. How many will the Vulcan actually do? I'm really kind of curious. So I'm curious. Do they have Delta was a Delta 2? How many did it nearly complete? Yeah, so I'm trying to think how many specifically each of these has kind of launched. Oh, here you go. Here's a launch history. Maybe we can do some quick math here, Mr. Vince.
Yeah, just go ahead.
So let's see if anybody wants to count. There's one flight of Delta 2 in 2006, 8, so that's 9. 2007, that's 14. That's 22. So yeah, you can see it starts tailing off. I don't think it ever gets to 50. And then you have the Atlas 5, which was probably the most launched vehicle for these guys. So they had 3, 5, 10, 14, 19. I'm not good with math. 25, 33. So at this point, you're beyond 7 years, right? And it took 7 years for Electron. So you're getting close to the 40-odd range. So it took them about 10 years to cross over to the 50 mark with the Atlas 5. Now you have the Vulcan that's kind of coming in, and I think it'll replace a lot of these opportunities coming through. So really, I think the only other competitor you would be able to say is ULA. I'm not sure if there's a Blue Origin counter like what we have here for all the different Delta launches, but this goes to show you it's not an easy feat, and the fact that they were able to do it. Were you sharing? Sorry.
Yeah, I just shared now.
Oh, you just shared now. Sorry. Let me go back to this then. Sorry. Yeah, sorry, I was counting myself. But yeah, this I don't think the Delta 2, which is in the yellow, ever got there. And then the green, I think after 10 years, they maybe have gotten from 2007 to 2015. So I guess you have a little bit, maybe they got there within this time period of 50 launches. So yeah, Falcon 9 and the Electron did it faster.
There's someone who is triggered by your hat.
Hey man, it's all working together, right? NASA is just the person that they're not actually doing any of the launches themselves anymore, right? They're the ones that are contracting.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, Matt is like moving up the food chain. He's like flowing money to NASA so they can buy from Rocket Lab.
That's the hope.
Yeah.
I actually was going to write them, either talk to Peter about it, or like send a note to their investor relations, or I was going to message NASA and try to understand why they don't have any Rocket Lab gear. They had a lot of SpaceX gear actually over there at Johnson Center in Southeast Houston. There was no Rocket Lab gear, and I was kind of upset by that. But they did note, some of the they did talk about Capstone a little bit in some of their presentations. The moon missions to the moon that they're going to be doing with the Artemis missions. So Rocket Lab got like a few little shout outs in some of their videos, but mostly it was SpaceX and a lot of them. And I was pretty upset that I didn't see more ULA, Rocket Lab. I'm okay not seeing Blue Origin. But I was just kind of like scratching my head as to why they didn't have more of those in there.
Interesting. Let us know if you end up you were going to write to Rocket Lab or NASA.
I don't know. I still haven't thought about it. Maybe both. Yeah.
Okay. Let us know what happens and if you do it. All right. So now, as the next news or the last news regarding Rocket Lab, I was thinking to discuss this piece of news. I don't know if you saw this one. It was basically Peter Beck who was giving an interview, and he basically said that the reuse of electron is not so important. I can read exactly what he said so that we're all on the same page. So in our way, the next 50 electron launches, when do you think you will see the first reuse? Candidly, the most important thing is not to interrupt the production team with new things and just keep the production rate of electron where it needs to be to support the manifest best this year. Electron reuse is not that important to the business on a margin standpoint, or at this point, even from a technology standpoint. The reusability team and the recovery team are 100% directed and focused on other things, mainly neutron, of course. I saw Dave G just did a video about it, and he was a bit disappointed on that Rocket Lab is not giving clear directions on reusability and why they're not focusing on this more. And Scotto is also very much into reusability, and he very much wants to see it. I do think that Rocket Lab is such a small, so developing neutron, one launch is going to be 55 million as opposed to 8 million on electron. It's way more important from a business standpoint to focus on that one. So my personal opinion is that if Peter Beck thinks that this is the right way to do it, I give him the credit. But I'm curious, were you surprised? Do you think that this is a setback? What's your opinion about this?
I don't think it's a setback. I think for me, what I see is it's a already constrained total addressable market. What I would hate to see is them focus and lose focus on the amount of availability. Right now, what I mean by this is, let me explain. Rocket Lab is currently in the driver's seat to say, look, we have more electron capability than we have customers. So they have the ability to kind of like, if a customer's there, send it. I think that they want to keep that ability to always be one step ahead of the customer. If they focus on reusability, they might lose that opportunity. And next thing you know, they might lose their competitive edge. Right now, Rocket Lab is literally growing as fast as they can and not being outpaced by the competitor. A prime example on the opposite, which will hit home with you. Remember when we talk about AIP and Palantir and how they're like can't keep up with demand? It's like, well, then how much money are we losing to other competitors if you and your team can't keep up? So it's the exact opposite with Rocket Lab. They have the ability to continue to grow and increase over time. And it's really the customers that are holding back the amount of cadence. So I would hate for that to switch and them be chasing their ability. And I agree. I think if that team can focus on neutron, then the margins for neutron will be much more. Because I think if you think about it, if you're able to get neutron right, the amount of and speed of reusability for a neutron rocket is likely to be much more rather than what we have for electron. Electron wasn't planned for reusability day one. You have to catch it in the ocean, refurbish it, all that. Archimedes in the neutron hull itself was designed for usability. So I assume that if you're able to get that focused, that'll help speed up the long-term cadence, which, like you stated, it's $50 odd million on launch versus say $8 million on launch. So I think that will be much, much more prominent. And also I think the refurbishment, going out to pick it up out in the ocean, all that, like you said, it might be a few percentage points and a few percentage points of margin on $8 million. Yeah, every percentage point's going to be $80,000, but is it really going to be the main focus? So it's like, don't be penny wise, but a dollar foolish is what I'm hearing. And I think that that's the right approach. If he thinks that there's more impact to be made on getting neutron reusability right initially, if you're able to save 1 or 2% margin on a neutron, that's $500,000 versus, or $1 million versus $80,000 or maybe $160,000 if you're able to get better gross margins on an electron. So that coupled with, getting reusability right if you get reusability right on the first try, then that prevents you from building losing another 10, $20 million building the next rocket, right? If you're able to say focus on and get that up to speed. So I think what they're doing right now with the Electron is sufficient. I think they'll get there over time. But I think that the opportunity set of being able to test a reusable neutron rocket is more important from the long-term longevity of the company. And I think that would allow them to almost shave off a year. Like if you're able to focus on and get reusability done on the first launch, you launch it in next year, 12 months from now, and land it the first time, then I think you're going to shave off a year's worth or maybe 2 years worth of trial and error, right? And so if you get that right, aim or measure a million times and then cut once and actually get it done, then you might be able to see 50 launches happen with Neutron faster than they did with the Electron. And then obviously that would be faster than the Falcon 9. And that would just show the execution ability of this team. One, smaller team. Two, more cost effective, from a dollar spent to launch ability perspective. And I think that is the way to go. You have to think at this point, the Electron is kind of an old design. Maybe they'll redesign it for the future. My thought process is they can learn a lot from the research and development that they've done from the Neutron and reapply it and maybe make the the Electron maybe slightly better for margins. Maybe they'll be able to design it. I was just looking, like the 9 Rutherford engines doesn't even have the power of one Archimedes. So it's like if you were to figure out a way to put Archimedes in there, switch out the tanks, make it a little bit easier, you'd still need a Rutherford, right? For the second stage, you'd still need a Curie for the kick stages, So I'm not saying get rid of all of it, but I'm just kind of curious as if there's some efficiencies that in the long run they could use from what they've researched and developed with the Neutron that could eventually be a redesign for the Electron in the future. Or do they just say, the Electron revenue stream is going to fizzle out eventually and more people are going to move to the Neutron? I don't know. I'm hoping that they keep the small launch because I think there's a lot of companies that they can almost have as a feeder. If you think about it, it's like if you move and you get away, sorry, I'm going off on a tangent because I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. If you move away from the small launch, Black Sky won't have an opportunity to grow into being able to use a Neutron because literally one launch for them would be 1/4 of their market cap. So you almost need to have these smaller feeder sort of rocket and availability for these smaller feeder rockets to be able to help those companies grow, to then be able to have them grow into the companies that use the Neutrons. Because this is still such a small developing space and total addressable market still growing. You need both, in my opinion.
The same.
And so anyway, that's just my thoughts.
And then the question is, the Electron is working so well that is it worth to put in millions and millions of dollars into research and development and testing and redesigning the rocket? Will you be able to earn that money back later on future launches? So I would be surprised if they would announce that they are making a mini Neutron. To replace the Electron. And I also think that they need both. We have a troll here in the comments. This guy is quite funny. He's in love with Scotto. I don't know who he is. I'm just going to block him, but it's quite funny if you guys see his comments. Yes. So where were we? I believe this was all that I had planned for Rocket Lab. One other space-related news. Let's take it this way. So this next week is probably going to be also a very busy week, both from Rocket Lab and both from the space industry. So Firefly is going to be launching. I might live stream this. I don't know yet. Do you have any interest in this launch? And
Depends what time of day. I have a conference here in Houston that I'll be attending. A lot of the executives are in town, so depending on what time of day, maybe. But if it's kind of midday for me, I probably wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same for me. If it's midday in my time zone, I have to work and can't do it. And so then we're expecting the hot fire test of Archimedes. It can theoretically come at any moment. It was promised in Q2. Q2 has 1 more week left. It is a rocket program, so it can be delayed. Then Adam Spice is going to speak at a conference. I had it open. Don't have it open now. I believe it's between the 25th and 27th. Again, I don't know if it's going to be broadcast widely or not. I'm going to be here if it is. Yeah, is there anything else that you want to take up, Matt?
No, other than somebody asked me what's in the cup. It's just Dutch Bros. I got what is it? Midnight Rebel. So
never been to Dutch Bros. I wanna go.
It's not bad, man. I don't drink much of their coffee. I drink more of their lemonades and I drink more of their energy drink. But it's not to say their coffee is bad. It depends how you like coffee, right? If you like coffee a little bit more bitter, burnt tasting, that's where you get Starbucks. You definitely have that like more roasted coffee flavor. Oh wow, look at that, $50. Congrats, man.
Wow, thank you, Fool's Gold. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's the $50 is awesome. And then you have the Dutch Bros, which is more like they have a little bit more milk and stuff like that. But anyway, yeah.
How much is a lemonade in Dutch Bros?
It depends, like $3-4.
It's not so bad.
Yeah, the large one might be $6. So yeah,
$6 for a lemonade. That's Bidenomics.
Bidenomics for you for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're also very bullish about Dutch Bros, but you're more bullish on Rocket Lab or the same?
Yeah, or... I don't have nearly as many shares. I think I have like 15 grand in Dutch Bros. It's not a lot. I think maybe it's grown closer to 20 grand now. Maybe it's like 18 because it's pulled back a little bit. But yeah, I don't have enough in it. I might sell some cash secured puts and just make a little bit extra income. But yeah, I just been from an options perspective, I've been printing money this year. Yeah, it's been doing pretty well.
Awesome. I have a very interesting thing that happened to me on Friday. This is the last thing, and then we finish. I had to roll a position, and somehow I like double rolled the position, and it was something that went like quite. Like you can have an option that, let's say you would receive like $2,000. That's your premium, and then it goes against you, and then let's say it's like. This one went into quite like 5 digits amount of loss, right? And then so when you roll it, then you like buy it and then you sell an option that is like a similar amount, and somehow like when I sold, I double sold, and I didn't notice like only when the market was like closed, so like I couldn't undo it, and I was like, oh my god, if this goes my way, it's going to be really, really good. But if it goes not my way, it's going to be very painful.
It happens, man. Yeah, it happens. That's generally speaking why when I do roll, I do the roll. Like there's generally like a roll button where you do 2 legs, right? You make sure you're closing out the one and then you're buying the other.
Yeah.
So literally you see it at the same sort of time. Because otherwise I've made that mistake before, not on a large scale, but
yeah, it's just when you do I have interactive brokers, when you do this roll, sometimes like you get killed on the spread on the bid and ask. I don't know why. So I've noticed that sometimes it's easier to not use this roll and just like sell the one and then rebuy, or yeah, like do it the other way.
I think you banned the wrong guy.
I did.
And it's kind of a pain to unban people too. You have to like go into your like your settings and stuff.
No, Vriel Serapin, if I banned you, I'm so sorry.
Poor guy. No, probably you were intentionally trying to ban the right person, but I think just
yeah, like the comment. Yeah. I don't know who this Koto lover is. It's definitely very funny. Anyways, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for being here, even this troll, and really enjoyed the stream, and looking forward to an exciting week. Matt's channel and Twitter is in the description box below as usual, and I'll see everyone next week.
Yeah, you guys rock. Thanks for having me on again, man.
Ciao.
Cheers.